This video is for those ones who believe in spirits, in spirituality, and are not afraid to listen to some ghost stories, some paranormal shit, because get ready, my childhood was a crazy journey. Imagine you were raised in the countryside of Brazil with a family of mediums. Your grandmother was a healer, a curandeira, a medicine woman who would be a teacher during the day and a superhero during the night. What I mean, in her free time, she would help people in her village, and she would make prayers and offerings with herbs, and then she would treat illness and disease that no doctor could heal. Yeah, this was my grandmother, and I was born in the same day as her, in 11 May. So deep shit, I think I have a big mission in this life. And everything was putting me in that direction since a very early age. When I was 6 years old, I was a sleepwalker. I'm gonna give already all the tea for you, my dear, because the reason I want to share this with you, because I think we should normalize mediumship and this sensibility in the spiritual realm. We are already in the Aquarius age, and I have so many things I want to share with you, but I feel I would like to give this introduction about my story for you to understand where I'm coming from, because I didn't become a esoteric ninja of nowhere. It's really on my bloodline, it's really on my ancestors, and like I will never take it for granted. I thank spirit, and I thank my family, and I thank my little light every day about these superpowers that, yeah, in the beginning felt very scary. And if you ever felt something similar that I had, I just want to let you know, like, I'm here holding your hand, and you're not crazy, and you're not schizophrenic, or whenever people say that if you're hearing voices or have even this ear ringing situations, ears ringing, like, you know, you might have a big probability to be a medium as well, a psych, a very special person with spiritual gifts. But yeah, we need to learn how to use this magic, to don't be negative to you, and to don't be negative to your community. So my entire life I have been devoted to understand my magical gifts and to control them, to transmute them, to help me to be at service to the community, to the planet, and to nature. So how it started? Okay, I was just telling you that when I was a kid, I was a sleepwalker. This is a paranormal story. I would wake up in the middle of the night, and I would go down the stairs. Our house was 2 floors house, and I would just start crying, and it was very mental, like from my brothers. I had a younger brother, like he was 3 years older than me, but like we were young, you know, so I was 6, he was 9, and it was very scary for him because he would try to talk to me and to touch me, and I would just be like there doing ghost things. Like, I don't know, I don't remember about that. And like we're not in these times of like smartphones, like nobody would shoot a video of me doing that sleepwalker shit, you know. So yeah, I had many stories about this in my childhood, and then my dad would take me to the doctors and try to get me also to other like spiritual leaders, or, you know, like healers, and took many months and rituals to them to clean the energy in your house, the haunted house, because not just me being a sleepwalker in that same period of time, my dad would tell that would happen like weird stuff in the house, that because they were already with this sensibility, you know, like my my mom, she would have like prophetic dreams. My dad, he was a medium as well, so like we had all these portals open, and then our house was like a magnet for that, because my dad, he was still also learning how to deal with all these energies, and he would get support of the spiritualism. That is like this religion that is based by the teachings of Allan Kardec. And I had an auntie that she was like a master level. She did the whole like school of mediumship as well. She would be a counselor, and in that way they could get education how to deal with the spiritual realm. But me as a kid, like my childhood was full of like spirits stories, where I had many imaginary friends. Since I was from the countryside, I would go to the woods, to the forest. I would spend a lot of time alone, because I also would feel an outcast compared with the other kids. So my best friends were chickens. We had many chickens in our house. We had rabbits and goats and like dogs and cats and like fruit trees. It's very nature in our surroundings. But still, I would even take some trails on my own to be even more alone in nature. It would be with my safe space, with my imaginary friends. And my mom, she would say that I was always talking with this invisible friend, that now I know that it would be my guardian angel or my spiritual guides. And when I was a kid, I was just able to see them. Then after I kind of close this accessibility, because what happened is that after all the episodes of the sleepwalking stopped, and then I was growing, I was feeling very different from the other kids. I had a brother that he was the same brother that would get scared with me. As we were being like teenagers, he would be studying the sacred texts. His life path, like since a young age, was as well to question all the religions and to question why we are here, where we come from, all these like existential questions. So he would be very extreme in a way that he would kind of subscribe to these religions, and he would go all in. So then he took me to the Lutheran one, and then we would go to these like retreats, also in nature, and then I used to read the Bible and pray and know many songs, devotional songs. This was very fulfilling for me as a kid. And then years passing by, this same brother started to study psychology, and then he would show me all the books like philosophy. I would start to read Nietzsche and get very into existentialism, and then also being a teenager, things got more hard like on my mind. I used to be an activist in social rights, like in human rights and environment, and I would feel very, very sad of how the world was going. And then I went to depression and had so much anxiety. I would be the leader on my school in the protests and like trying to find like in politics, and I used to write in a journal, like in a newspaper, about human rights. And I kind of left the spiritual world questions and then or fate to fall into the dark side of the matrix, or like to put so much attention on that I felt very, very depressed, and plus I think now that I know about evil spirits, I was very sensitive, so I was getting this influence on my mind, and I couldn't afford a psychologist. Like in that time, it was not so common as nowadays to talk with a professional, to do therapy in that way. And well, I was just trying to figure out, like as a teenager, right, who I was. But I already expressing myself through art and through music. I started composing music with 11 years old. I was to write poems, so I have this enhanced sensibility and to create and to express myself. And by the years were passing by, I was being influenced again for the same brother who joined the Hare Krishna temple in Itajaí, Santa Catarina, in Brazil. And then I would study Bhagavad Gita with him. He would be my teacher, and I would go to kirtans, and I would understand the story of Ganesha and Shiva and Shakti and be amazed by that. I start to join yoga, and then by the years were passing by, I also had an episode of seeing ghosts a little bit before that, before moving to this other city, where was very scary for me. Was before I joined university. And in that moment I went to Umbanda, that is a religion in Brazil that is a mix of like African Brazilian religion. And there I performed a ritual with spiritual leader of that place to close my third eye and to close my energetic field, because I didn't want to have this sensitivity anymore. I didn't want to be able to see spirits, which was a decision I made because it was very scary for me. And I felt I was being way too crazy, in that moment. I didn't have education for that. We didn't have so much information that we have nowadays. So my family, although my dad, he was a medium, I had many aunties that were mediums as well. They had this belief where you shouldn't pursue a spiritual life when you're young. Like you should just start being at service of the collective after like your 50s or something. Like first you had to have your normal life where to grow in your body, to get university, to get study, to get married, to have kids, like also a mentality of more like traditional family. They believe on that. And then after you have your kids are already grown-ups, and then it's time for you to do your contribution to the community around you, then you will be at service. So this is what my family would tell me. And they were like, stop talking about that. And although like my dad also, I remember when I was at 10 years old, like he would read tarot cards for me. He would have a collection of oracles. I would love that so much. It would be our family thing, like so I don't know, some people would like watch TV with their parents. Like my dad would read tarot cards for me. Like how cool was that? It was like super cool as well. I'm also very into that. I still is not here, but yeah, I use the same tarot deck that my dad used to read for me when I was a child. It was my heritage. But yeah, he had many ups and downs on this world because he would get very scared of spirits, of developing this heightened sensibility, And yeah, he would say to me, Vani, put this aside and you don't need that. But I'm so curious and I'm so fascinated by the magic, by the vibhuti, by the unknown that I couldn't really stop pursuing. And what happened? Yeah, so I had this episode of seeing ghosts in my room. I would feel very scared. I went to this place to do this ritual to perform to close it. And then I didn't think about this for some years, but I would always love tarot and love witchcraft. I had this other auntie that she's a Wicca. She's a teacher in a Wicca school in Brazil, in Florianópolis, where it's called the Island of Magic, a Ilha da Magia. And she's just like amazing woman. And I would perform Sabbath. I would be in her coven as a teenager, and she would teach me about the 4 elements and how to perform rituals. But in that moment, I would do it with her in just like a performative way. I found like, ooh, this is so like it's like a game for me, you know. I was just more like because of the play than believing on that, than doing this believing that from faith, you know. So I was just more curious in that regard. So I started my esoteric ninja life very early with all these influences from my family, but not really feeling from my heart. Okay. But then at university, then I was getting to know the Hare Krishna and all the Hinduism, and I still had these up and downs moments of anxiety and depression. I already left the politics, the activism. I stopped pursuing that. I was going more into arts, or like how I could change the world through art, to poetry, and then being like an activist on the street, you know, like because before I was even considering studying journalism or history at university. But then when I moved to graphic design, I was more into art. So I felt I want to express myself through music, through painting, through drawings, rather than and through writing like politics, you know. So I, beside the kirtan thing, that was also not a religious thing for me, was more like exotic. It would be my moment to visit my brother, and I found that like all the deities and stuff like very nice, very interesting, but also was not really calling my heart. And then I had this friend from this collective. We used to do it was our philanthropic project, where we used to produce social events with culture and arts. It was called Vitamina Coletiva, and she was very into meditation, to Tibetan Buddhism. So I went to her to some gatherings there, and then there I was learning to meditate for real. And I remember as well, now I forgot to say, but when I was teenager, I used to attend Gnosis. That is another course that you do, that you would always start with a meditation, and then they would have a theme for the day. And what they would do is like they would gather many information for different religions and different philosophies, like Egyptians, Greeks, and then they would explain that topic through the lens of each one, you know, like what Buddhism would say, what the Greeks would say, what the Romans would say, what paganism, Celts would say. So that was very interesting. I attended many classes on that, but was not so deep as when I started the Tibetan Buddhism, that I would go every week for like a couple of years. And I also made friends of people that they were Rosicrucians. That is this mystery school. I rolled it up. I subscribed to be a Rosicrucian as well. I had an auntie, she was Rosicrucian, but because I didn't have a center here in Portugal, I didn't spend much time. but it was nice for me to know what they were studying, you know, for my curiosity and for my like general knowledge. As well, my dad, when I was at university, he rolled up to, he joined the Freemasonry, and I know so many people say that it's a cult and say bad things about that, but what my dad would share with me, that it was more also a study of metaphysics, and it was more about like a group of men supporting each other in their business. So let's say you had a business in something, and then like, I don't know, if you would hire someone, you would rather hire that like one of your brothers of the brotherhood than hire someone else from far that you don't know. Was more about doing connections. And I didn't find it bad, you know, like it was also like a community support. They would perform some rituals also based in the elements and some like pagan, like witchcraft, but nothing is scary what they would say. But they didn't spend so many years there, you know. But yeah, let's say that around me had all this information about the Rosicrucians, the Freemasonry, and then they had this Wicca witchy auntie. I had this other auntie. She was like a high level of the Rosicrucian and spiritualist religion from Allan Kardec. I had this other Reiki master auntie, and then after some years when I was finishing my university, my uncle, he started to be a ceremonialist of ayahuasca center. So now it's been more than 10 years that he is in a very serious work with that. He opened a place in the countryside in his farm. He's not his main job. He has this other job, and he does this in the free time, because they also believe that you shouldn't charge that. You shouldn't live by spirituality. What my family believes, that this should be your service. You're here to, you know, to help the collective and to clean your karma, to bring your dharma. So it's something that you do it as a devotee, you know. It's not about like pursuing like a name or a fame or money with that. So it's a lesson that I care very deeply in my heart as well, about this legacy of my family. And yeah, after so coming back to the timeline, so I was having all these influences of my family, and then I was in the Tibetan Buddhism and practicing yoga, but also it was very hard for me to meditate that time. I was like struggling a bit to silence my mind, but I had some revelations moments with that. I had a very toxic relationship with an ex. He was very abusive and aggressive, so I had to escape. Like I had to run away of Brazil. I went to Ireland, to Dublin, and then in Dublin I was suffering a lot with depression and anxiety. I started practicing Kundalini meditation, where the Kundalini meditation would be more about aligning your chakras. You had a whole like movements and about your auric field. In that moment, I would feel more peace of mind and some more clarity. It was a pity that I didn't study much about the folklore of Ireland. Then after I found out with all the fairy realms and the witchcraft. But yeah, I didn't go to that direction. I was just trying to learn English and survive and work in my fast food, whatever, to survive, and doing yoga with Adrian on YouTube and doing the Kundalini meditation every week in this meditation center. So yeah, meditation has been my life for so many years, and the mediumship stayed aside. Like I wasn't feeling that it was my call. I was just trying to have a peace of mind really. And then after I came to Portugal, and then in Portugal I was just trying to survive. I started working as a tattoo artist, and just also not thinking much about it. I stopped doing the meditations in the meditation centers. I stopped doing yoga consistently. I was just trying to survive. But in 2020, as many of us, I had this like huge revelation moment where I had my spiritual awakening for real. And then I understood everything, and everything made really sense on my mind. But this part will be in my second video. I don't want this to be very long. But yeah, tell me, what do you think about this? Does it resonate with you? Did you also had like a paranormal childhood, a family of mediums, or did you study any of these branches I was telling you about? Rosicrucian, Gnosis, Tibetan Buddhism, Kundalini meditation, Umbanda, spiritualist religion. Let me know in the comments. And yeah, oh my goodness, I don't remember if I said that, but yeah, I feel like I want to say all of this to say like, if you also if you're in your path of truth, if you're asking all these questions, like, be so proud of you. It's not everybody who does that. And at the same time, take it easy with yourself, because so many informations out there, and it's a whole world. We have our whole life to get to know all these things, and God is always giving us the right directions, and we had no a wrong path. It's okay to be seasons of studying this and that and changing until you find what is your final call. And I'm so excited to tell you the story of my spiritual awakening. Just a little spoiler, it involves Kundalini yoga and ayahuasca. It was a big transformation in my life. And I can't wait to record the next video. And I hope you like it. Please like, comment, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Keep spreading love, keep spreading smiles. I love you so much.